Okay, domain is what letter? Oh, I'm sorry, we're range. Range is what letter? The Y values, okay? And when we have a picture like we do here, we're cropping this picture, okay? And so if you look up there where it says Y, next to the Y values, it reminds you that your cropping lines are gonna go to the side. They gotta go through the Y axis. So as I go to draw a line right here, I run into an arrow. Are you allowed to crop an arrow? No. And then on the bottom, when I go to draw a line, we run into an arrow, and we're not allowed to crop an arrow. Oh, I was like, B and D are the same thing. So this would be called what? All real numbers. And so this happened to me, so it might have happened to y'all. I looked at B and D. So remember infinity, that infinity symbol means all real numbers. I was like, oh my gosh, they're the same, but they're not. What's the difference between B and D? Very good. And so range was wise. So range was wise, so it had to have a Y. And so it's going to be the all real numbers that has the Y. All right. So number 2, what do we see that tells us this is really, really easy? Anytime you have 2 letters that are back to back, 2 letters make a Y. This is really Y equals. And anytime we have Y equals, okay, so I want to remind you all of this poster right here. Anytime we have Y equals, we can plug this under graphs in the calculator. Okay, so you're actively looking. Anytime we find Y equals, that should be an easy question. All right, so we're going to go to our calculator, go to Y equals. Or I'm sorry, we're going to graphs. So go to your calculator, go to graphs. I personally would go to this button right here. I would never hit the scratch pad graph. It's not very good. I would go to this. And then we're typing in. All right, do y'all know how to do a fraction? Very good. Control divide. So control and divide gives you that fraction right there. 2/5. And then make sure you get out of the fraction. So if you put, we can only put X's into graphs. Okay, so if you put an R, I'm sorry, I should have said that first. Go delete that R and we got to put an X. But don't put it in the bottom of the fraction. So you got to make sure you arrow out. So you click that arrow out and then you can put the X and then plus 18. All right, as long as it looks like our problem right there, then you've done it right. So hit enter. And then what button do we always hit? Menu 5-1. It's the first yellow poster right there. So under graphs, the main thing we always do is menu 5-1. So I'm going to hit menu 5-1. And I always get kids going, but I didn't even see anything. It doesn't matter. You hit menu 5-1. Okay. Now, this doesn't tell me anything. So this is not magic fairy dust. This doesn't tell me anything. So you got to look at your problem. What do you see in the problem? A 10. So maybe you know what the 10 means, maybe you don't. But if we see 10, we're going to type 10 in and hit enter just to see what happens. And when we type 10 in, what do we get? All right, and that 22 is going to be our answer right there. Now, when you, so this will be on the computer, the test will be, when you are putting this into the computer, you never type numbers into that first box. Okay, first box is for plus or minus only. Do you have to put a positive sign? No. So I usually don't. Okay, but the numbers only begin in the second box. So we'll put 22 right there. Remember that if you have one of these boxes and you don't know what to do, never leave it blank. Give yourself a shot. Most answers are between 1 and 20. Okay, I have a number I always use. It's 5. I want y'all to have a number that you always use. And, if there's 3 of these and you don't know any of them, you put that same number every time. If you want to make it negative, you can, but if you're going to make it negative, always make it negative. All right, so the answer to this one was 22. So hopefully y'all think these are easy. This is one of the ones that we're dependent on our test to be easy. Okay, now one of the things I hate about these is it's a little bit tricky. Okay, it says, which of the following does not represent a function? So they want to know if it's a function. I'm sorry, They want to know if it is not a function. And I'm not going to lie, I don't like to read. I think I've told y'all this, okay? I don't like to read. So I do a lot of scanning, okay? And so in my scanning, I miss words like that a lot, and it kicks my butt. There is a way to tell that, so let's say that I missed this word. Do y'all remember how to tell if this is a function? Yeah, so the vertical line test, it can only touch once. So I test that one, I'm like, oh, so let's say I didn't see the word not. I'm like, oh, that's the answer. Go ahead and look at the next one. Oh, wait a sec, that's also the answer. Wait a sec, this is also the answer. And then I'm like, something's going on here. I got 3 different answers right here. So I go back up, and this time I actually am careful, and I realize they're looking for the one that is not a function. And the one that's not a function would be J, because it touches twice. So you draw a vertical line, it's called the vertical line test. And if it touches it twice, it's not a function. If it only touches it once, it is a function. All right. So we're looking for this. Now remember, we're always looking for keywords. Now, I know in this one, function was kind of the keyword, obviously not help too. Function is rarely a keyword. I always get kids that want to underline function. Man, everything like in algebra is a function, okay? And so rarely is function a keyword. It's only when it's asking, is it a function, okay? So what keyword tells us what to do? Remember, only words that tell us what to do matter. So like the word inequality doesn't tell me what to do. Y'all see a word that tells us what to do? Because if you don't find this word, then we're kind of stuck. Somebody see it? Range, very good. So if you don't find that word, then this becomes really tough. Okay, so we got to find the word range. Range is what letter? Y. I should have done this on my last question. I didn't. A good test taker should always be looking at their answers very quickly. Very good. If you'll look at your answers right away, not always, but a lot of times, A has an X and D has an X, and you can mark those off. So even if you screw something up, you got a 50-50 shot of getting this right, okay, just based off that letter. Okay, so I just want to remind you that when we look at this, how are we doing, Jordan? Here we go. Pencil. Do you need a pencil? There you go. And then here's paper and calculator. All right, and we are on question 4. What was that saying? Oh, so I want to remind you, when you look at the poster where it says range up there, it says range Y values, and you got these 2 lines. These lines are telling you we crop the top and the bottom. Use the notes. Matter of fact, one of the things I do in my other classes is I try not to call these notes, because if I call these notes, kids will never look at them. I call them cheat sheets. Oh, we can cheat? That's right, you can cheat. Oh man, you tell kids they can cheat, man, they're all over this. That's a cheat sheet up there. I'm not supposed to have these up here. If the principals come in and see that I have these up here, then I'm going to get fired. So we're cheating. So see, now all of a sudden kids want to use it, don't they? So make sure that you're cropping the top and the bottom. If it's range, your line has to cross the y-axis. So when we go to draw this right here, crop the top. Now, first off, we had an open circle. So remember, don't draw through the open circle, okay? So that it's easy to remember it's open. Now, it's kind of tough to read these numbers today, but that right there would be -1. And then down here would be -4. So just by default, it's got -1 and -4. Which answer is that? B, yeah. Now, I will remind you that if it is an open circle, open circles do not get an equal to bar. So notice right here at -1, there was no equal to bar right there. Okay. All right, so the answer was B. Okay. Okay, so number 5. Now, I will tell you that this could be done in the calculator. And how do I know that this could be done in the calculator? I've taught y'all that anytime that we have 2 letters, okay, that you could type this in the calculator. However, this nth term right here is really kind of confusing. And I didn't even teach it to y'all because it's confusing. Okay. So you could type this into the calculator. If they have a list of numbers, which I don't think they do on the test, they write this totally different on the test. If they have a list of numbers, then you could type in 1 and see if it gives you -6. You could type in 2, but I don't think that's how it's going to be on the test. So I'm really not going to worry about this question. So what's our strategy? If you get something and you don't know what to do on the test, guess C. Now, I'm going to tell you, if I do this to you guys, please understand I would never do this to embarrass you, but to teach you. But the day of the test, I remember when we took this test last semester, I walked around to kids and I put their test down after they finished. And I said, what did you put here? And they're like, I put A. I don't know what they put, but let's just say they put A. And I'm like, okay. Why'd you put A? Oh, okay. Well, did you know what you were doing? No. Okay. Well, do we have a strategy when you don't know what you're doing? Uh-huh. What is it? Guess C. Very good. You didn't know what you were doing on this question. Did you guess C? No, I didn't. So I want to remind y'all to follow strategy when you don't know. Hey, what's going on? So anytime you don't know, I want y'all to guess C. All right, follow that strategy. It works. All right. So on this one right here, that's what I would be doing, is guessing C. All right, turn your paper over. All right, number 6. Do we see a key word here? Range. All right, so range is wise. Now, a little trick that can help. How many dots do you see? 5. How many numbers should be in my answer? 5. Look at your answers. 2 answers don't make any sense here. A and B don't make any sense. They've only got 2 numbers. There should be 5 numbers in this. Okay. All right. So now you're going to go from each dot. Range is the Y. So we're going to the Y-axis. You're going to go from each dot to the Y-axis. Now, the bad part is we have to start here at 0 and count down to figure out what this number is. So here's 0. We're going to count down -1, -2, -3, -4. Which of these has a -4 in the answer? Yeah, these are. So really, we only had to look at one of these once you eliminated A and B. So that really ended up not being so bad. I hope on the test that all these will be numbered. I think they will be. Okay, so it's probably been a few days since we've talked about this, but what's the keyword? Y'all know the keyword on number 7? Mm-hmm. 0. So I want to remind you of this poster right here. This cheat sheet. Okay, this cheat sheet right here will remind you of some key words. So if y'all remember, we took a quiz over this where you had to identify all these words, and everybody that took it made 100 on it. So if you use this, you should be fine. So here's the word 0, and it's pointing to where it touches the x-axis. So zeros are where it touches the x-axis. A really easy question right there. Okay, so we really want to make sure we know what zeros are. So when I look at this, it'll probably help if you put a dot where it crosses the x-axis. So it crosses here and here. Now, I have no idea where this is touching. It's in between numbers. But I do know one little thing here. Are these touching on the positive side or the negative side? The negative side. I need to have 2 negative answers. I don't know what they are, but they should both be negative. So take a look at your answers. And if it's got a positive answer, mark it off. So A has a positive answer. B has a positive answer. C only has 1 0. I should have 2 zeros. D is the only one that had 2 negative answers. Now, I had no idea that the answer was a -1.82. No idea. But I knew it was negative. So one of the things that you'll hear me say from time to time, my kids in my other classes hear me say this quite a bit more. As a good test taker, don't ever focus in on what you don't know. Always focus in on what you do know. I always get a thing where kids ask, why do we have to take algebra? Even if you haven't asked it yet, you're thinking it, Why do we have to take algebra? I'm never going to use this stuff in my life. And you're going to hate my response to it, but you're right. You're probably never going to use this in your life. If you're using Algebra 1 in your life, you're making gobs of money. And if you ever grow up and you're using Algebra 1 in your life and you're making gobs of money, I want you to remember poor old Coach Settles that taught you this algebra, okay? And be like, man, I would not be here filthy rich without Coach Settles. And I accept donations, okay? So you come back and you remember poor old Coach Settles. It could be a car. It could be a vacation, anything like that. I will not turn stuff like that down. Now, for most of us, we're not using algebra. So why do we have to take this? Well, the reason is because Algebra 1 teaches you how to solve problems. And the one thing that every single one of us are going to have in our lives is problems, okay? And the number one thing that you have to learn when solving a problem is you may not know the answer right away, okay? Like early on in my life when I worked in Oklahoma, y'all don't know this, but in Oklahoma teachers, at least when I was working there, they were paid 49th in the United States, okay? So out of 50 states, Oklahoma was 49th. 48 other states paid more money to be a teacher than what Oklahoma did, okay? So I can't tell you how many times that I looked at my bank account and I looked at my bills and the bills were more than my bank account. And that's a problem. And it was like, how are we going to solve this problem? I don't know. Okay. Well, when you don't know something, you don't panic and go, well, I'm just not going to do anything. You start looking for anything that you know. Well, as a test taker, that's what you're going to do. You're going to look at this and you're going to say, well, I may not know the answer, but what do I know? I got to know something that's going to help. Okay. And of course, if you know nothing, then we're going to get C, but you'd be surprised at what you can figure out, what you can eliminate. Okay. On a test, if you just focus on anything that you know. Okay. So that's what we did here. I had no idea where this crossed, but I knew it. I did know that it crossed on the negative side, and that helped me find my answer. Okay. All right. So number 8. All right. Do we see a word that we know? So there we go. There we go. So and here's what we're going to stress about this. Y'all know the word inequality, but does that tell me what to do? No. And so you're correct. That domain tells us exactly what to do. What do we do on domain? What letter is domain? X. So when we draw our lines, anytime it's a picture, we're drawing lines, it has to cross the x-axis. That's vertical lines. Oh, you can eliminate something too if you look at your answers. What can we eliminate here if it's X? B has a Y. It can't be a Y. It has to be an X. All right. So we're going to draw a line. So I got a line crossing right here at -3. Can you draw a line where there's an arrow? No, we cannot crop an arrow. Arrows go on forever, so we can't crop that. Oh man, this is kind of a sucky one right here. So first off, what number are we hitting right here? -3, so we know it's not C. So this will not be on the test, what we're about to see, okay? But, you know, let's just say that we see a test one day that has it, maybe the STAR test has it. We know it's either A or D. As of right now, you know, we're not sure which way. The only thing I could tell you, if you're not sure what to do, is follow the direction of the arrow. Now, I know this arrow is kind of going up, but it's also going which direction? Well, for y'all, it's going this way. So which of these arrows is pointing that direction? I think you're thinking alligator. That's the most common mistake that everybody thinks of these as alligators. I think of this as an arrow, like this. So I see this as an arrow, and I just follow that arrow. So I personally would say A. But in the end, if they got 2 answers, they won't on our test. They won't have 2 answers like this with different arrows. But if they did, you know, try to follow the arrow, see if that helps you. All right, this is going to be more like what we see on the test. All right, what's the key word? Range. All right, so what axis, what letter are we talking about with range? Y. Is very good. So we got to draw lines that cross the y-axis. So we got to go to the top of our picture. Then we got to go to the bottom of our picture. All right, so the top of our picture, what number do we hit? The top,
Oh,
it's a 4, but it's not negative, it's positive. But it is, is that the one you were looking at? Right here, yeah. So it's just not negative, so it's positive. So look at your answers. Uh-huh. You can take off one more, actually. Uh-huh. So all these right here had -4. Okay, the only one that had +4 was this one. Now, where did they get the 0? Because this crossed the y-axis right here, which is 0 on the y-axis. Okay. Now, the biggest mistake that people make when they do this is they actually end up finding the domain because this dot's next to -4 and this dot's on 7. So everything in them wants to look at the numbers next to the dots. And this is why we draw the lines that cross the y-axis. And it's where it crosses the y-axis that we stress our answer. So this was 0 right here and 4. So 0 and 4. Okay. All right. Number 10. What do we see that is going to, like, we should love when we see this right here? Does anybody know? When you see this, I know it looks weird, but when, yeah, this right here, remember, 2 letters back to back make a Y. So as soon as you see that right there, it's like ding, ding, ding. Hey, this is all calculator. So we love these right here. So we're going to go to our calculator. So anytime we have y equals, I even do have, so when you look at this poster right here, not only do I have y equals, but I have one with 2 letters, just to remind you. Now I know this says f of x, but it's anytime we got 2 letters back to back, we can go to graphs. So we can go to graphs, and we are typing in 25x. So when you type in graphs, you only type in what comes after the equal sign. So 25x plus 750. All right, and then we hit enter. Okay, I don't see anything, but that's all right. What do we always hit after we hit enter? It's the yellow poster, if you forget. Menu 5-1. So always hit menu 5-1. All right, remember, this is not magic pixie dust. This is not an answer right here. So we start looking. What else does it give us? Well, this actually gives us quite a bit. It gives us a whole bunch of extra numbers. So anytime they give us extra numbers, what are we going to do? We're going to type in all these extra numbers. Okay, starting with this 2 right here. I hate the fact that this 2 is on the side. They should have kept all these together. But starting with this 2. So we're just going to type in 2 and see what it says. So we're going to type 2, enter, and see what it says. What does it say? So right here, you type in 2, hit enter, 800. So look at your answers. Oh, they all have an 800, don't they? Okay, so that doesn't help because they all have an 800. Type in 4 and enter. 850. Do they all have an 850? Okay. Type in what's next? 6. 6 and 900. Do they all have a 900?
No.
Nope. So let's mark off anything that doesn't have 900. There you go. What are we on now? 8. So we're typing in. All we're doing is typing in. So they gave us a whole bunch of extra numbers. We're just typing them all in. 950. Oh, they both have a 950 that are left. And the last one is 10. Oh, did y'all get this 1e to the 3? So first off, that e to the 3 means that there's going to be 3 zeros after. So that would be what, 1,000? And then at some point, we will drill you guys on how to switch that over. I'm not going to worry about it today. So the only one that had 1,000 was D. Oh, you know what might be the easiest way to switch it over? Maybe. I need to practice this myself because I don't do this much. It's Control T. And then Control T, I think will, yep, there's 10 and 1,000. So we'll teach that to y'all later. I'm not going to worry about it right now. All right. So going down, looking at number 11. All right, so I want you to do number 11 on your own real quick, and I'm going to walk around and see what y'all are going to do. Very good. Very good. You thought there was I was going to trick y'all or something like that. I want very nice. Yeah, exactly. So what's our strategy? Yes. See, guys, people always say I'm crazy that, like, I tell teachers all the time, you have to practice guessing C. I'm like, I had a kid 2 years ago. So last year we didn't take a STAR test, but 2 years ago, I had a kid and he failed every single one of my tests all year long. And every time I would pull him to the back and I would be like, dude, you got all the easy questions. But the hard questions, okay, you didn't guess C on. And I would go through and I'm like, do you know how to do this? No. And I'm like, if you would have guessed C on this one, you know, that was the answer was C. And I'm like, all right, did you guess C on, you know, did you know this one? No. Did you guess C on it? No. And I would point out every single test how many C's that he missed because he wouldn't guess C. And I'm telling you, he wouldn't do it. And we practiced it all year long. We got to the STAR test. And I mean, like before the STAR test, y'all are about to see this. Before we take STAR test, we do a ton of review every day. And every day I'm going to him, you know, and I always put hard questions because we got to practice guessing C. And I'm going up to, are you guessing C? Are you guessing C? Are you guessing C? And he was in class, you know, on practice. And we finally made it to the STAR test. And I'm like, oh, please guess C, you know, and all the hard stuff. And he finally guessed C. And I was very cruel to him the day that I was giving out scores. So the day I was giving out scores, I pulled kids out to the hallway because if you failed, I wanted you to be able to have a moment not in front of your friends and stuff like that. Does that make sense? So I pulled kids out in the hallway and I told them, I said, if I tell you approaches, that means you passed. Meets means you made a B, and masters means you made an A. And so he came out to the hallway and I said, well, I got some bad news. You did not get approaches. And he's like, well, you know, I failed every test this year. So I kind of expected it. And I was like, no, you got meets. Dude made a B on the test because he finally guessed C. It took all year, but that's why we practice. So as I was walking around, you could almost sense maybe a little bit of frustration. No, man, I want y'all to be happy. I want y'all to love hard questions because hard questions means you get to guess what on that? C. So I want y'all to be like, well, nope. I don't want you to be frustrated. I don't want y'all to be anything. I want y'all to be like, oh, sweet, a hard one. C. And we move on with life. All right. And I want to train them. Okay. Number 12. What do we see here? Now, first off, I do have a key word, but something even more important. What do we see right here that we like? All right. Anytime we have y equals, we're going to go plug this in the calculator. Then we'll come back and figure out what we're supposed to do. So we're going to type in this negative x squared plus 2x plus 1. So go start a brand new graph. So brand new graph. We're going to type in minus x squared plus 2x plus 1. Hit enter. All right, so we've got this. We're going to hit menu 5.1 because that's what we do after we hit, you know, type something in. We hit menu 5.1. All right, so now I got to go back and, you know, this isn't an answer right here. So I got to go look and see what I'm looking for. And there's a keyword. Does anybody know this keyword? Vertex. Now, those of you that weren't here kind of when we started this, you may not recognize this word, but vertex is right here. We want to try to recognize, or anytime that you don't recognize a word, it's probably on this poster right now. Okay. So some of y'all that kind of came in late. So vertex in this box right here, first off, is pointing to this dot, but look next to vertex. In green, y'all see this X, comma, Y? The answer has to be an X and a Y. Immediately, you could mark off 2 answers here. What 2 answers do you mark off? It can't be A, and it can't be C, because just to make sure that you are seeing this, in green right here, it says vertex has to be parentheses X, comma, Y. It has to be that. So it's either got to be B or D. Now, we can type in 2 and we can type in 1. We control the very first number. Okay. So let's type in 2 and see where our thing goes. So we're going to type in 2 and enter. Is that the vertex right there? No, vertex should be the very top. Okay, so that's where it's, or the very bottom, just depending. So we type in 2, that's this tracer, this X looking thing right here called the tracer. That's not at the very top. So we type in 1. Yes, is that right there, the vertex? Yes, that's our vertex. It says 1, 2. So the answer is going to be 1, 2. All right. Number 13 says, which of the following is a function? So it's just asking, is it a function? So how do we tell if it's a function? Very good. If the x's do not repeat, it's a function. So I would say on A, we got these 2 1s that repeat, so that's not a function. Remember, you're only looking at the x's. On B, looks like there's 2 1s here that repeat, so that's not a function. Yeah, I like C. Now, they're tricky here. Look at this. They put 2, 2, 3, 3. It kind of looks like it repeats, but do we look at the watts? No, not to tell if it's a function, but they were kind of tricky right there. And then just going ahead and looking at D, it had 2 -4s, so that's not a function. All right, number 14. All right, number 14. So why do we think this is so easy right here? There you go. The 2 letters becomes a Y. So this is all calculator. Now, when we go into graphs, we don't put W, we put what? X. So you can only put X's under graphs. So we're going to go to our calculator, open up a brand new one. And then we are typing in, if I can find this, 19 minus 3x. Hit enter. Okay, so once you hit enter, you always hit what? Menu 5.1. Now make sure you hit enter before you hit menu 5.1, because if you don't hit enter, it actually erases everything. So hit enter and then hit menu 5.1. All right, and then this is not an answer. So we have to look back at our paper. What do you see? I see just a bunch of numbers, right? So anytime we see that bunch of numbers, we just start typing them in, right? So the first number I see is -4. So I'm going to type in -4, hit enter. And I get -4 and 31. Look at all your answers. Mark off anything that does not have 31. Yeah, answer's got to be C, because none of these have 31, so C. All right, number 15 asks us to find the X and Y intercept. Now we've got a problem here, okay? Can I plug this in the calculator? No, Y is not by itself. So you got 2 options here. You can get Y by itself, which we've done in this class a few times. Or if you don't know how to get Y by itself, what are you going to do? Guess C, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't know how to do it, it's hard. You don't stress over it. So I am going to show you how we get X by itself, because we did this in Unit 1. But if you weren't here during Unit 1, then you probably don't know how to do this. There's a poster right here that says getting Y by itself, this bottom one. And really, that's what we're going to follow here. So anytime we get Y by itself, we get rid of this X first. So this is a -2x. What's the opposite of -2x? Positive 2x. So we put plus 2x, plus 2x. So this is going to cancel out. And we've got 6y equals. Now, whenever you do this, you never, ever, ever will combine these. If you look at the poster over here, that -3x and -12, we never combine them. But when we bring it down, we always put the x up front. So we're going to put 2x up front and then -12. Now, if you put -12 plus 2x, it's the same thing. But most of the time, answers are written with the x up front. And then we're going to divide by 6 to everything. So if you can do this, and then just because we're short on time, I'm going to go ahead. You'd put this in the calculator. Well, no, I need to show you. the calculator will reduce the fraction. So you can just go to regular calculator right here and put control divide 2/6, and it'll reduce it for you. So I just want to make sure you know that you can do that. So 1/3x, and then if I put this in the calculator, it'll give me a -2. Now, could you type this in the calculator? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we would go to our y equals and type in, and y'all can just watch. You don't have to. For a lot of us, I think that we might end up guessing C on this, which is fine. This is not an easy one. We are not depending on this one. But I know that there's some of us that practice this a lot in Unit 1, and y'all can do this. All right, so now once we hit that, I'm going to clear this for a second. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So right here is 0. We're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, do we have an answer that has a +6? For the x-intercept, +6. Yeah. What is that? C is the only one that has +6. And then on C is the y-intercept. So I'm going to start at 0, -1, -2. Is the y-intercept -2? Yeah. So the answer is C. Oh, so if those of y'all that didn't know what y'all were doing and guess C, that would have been the answer right there, right? So, like I said, some of us can do this and some of us can't. In the end, if you can't, then guess C, move on. Don't stress over it. If you feel like you can do it, then go ahead and do it and plug it in the calculator. All right, number 16. Do you see keywords anywhere? Very good, domain and range. Now, even if you don't see domain and range here, in the answers you see domain and range. Okay, so if we do domain first, we're going to draw vertical lines that cross the x-axis. So we're going to go this edge of my picture, and we're going to go this edge of my picture. And it has to cross the x-axis for domain. What two numbers did we hit on the x-axis? And so look at your answers. If the domain does not have 1970 and 2000, we'll mark it off. So only B and C had the domain of 1970 to 2000. Now we're going to draw the range, which are horizontal lines. So remember, this is a picture. Okay, so what's the bottom of my picture? It's not right here, it's right here. So the bottom of my picture is right here. I can't really tell where that's hitting, but I can tell where this one's hitting. So remember, now range is the Y. So this one definitely hits at 4,000, but both of these have 4,000. Oh, does it hit at 0 or maybe 700? I can't tell. That's got to be 700, isn't it? 0 would be down here. So the answer would be C.